Welcome to the Fellowship of Extraordinary Women weekly radio broadcast with Kimberly Joy, founder, author, speaker, and mom of 11. The Fellowship of Extraordinary Women radio broadcast is for women of faith to discover the extraordinary life they were born for. The Fellowship of Extraordinary Women offers monthly gatherings, professional certifications, and publishing for women who want to leave a legacy in their faith, their families, and their finances. For more information, visit thefewwomen.com. That's thefewwomen.com. Follow them on socials by searching at The Few Women. Now here's your host, Kimberly Joy.
Welcome to Extraordinary with Kimberly Joy. I'm your host. This is a very special episode this Saturday, the weekend of Thanksgiving. What a great time to have these two on the show. I'd like to welcome author Carol Soule and Coach Joe Kennedy. Welcome to the show today.
Hey, guys.
So many of you have been listening to me talk about Carol's amazing book, Illustrated God Stories. And if you watched the episode I did earlier this week, you heard all about what compelled Carol to write this episode. And oh, I'm having some feedback. Hold on. Okay. I'm just muting you for a moment, guys. Just want to make sure I don't have feedback. I'll stick with me here. So Carol wrote this beautiful book. God told her to paint paintings, and she heard about Coach Joe Kennedy and his Supreme Court case. Carol is a patriot. Joe is a patriot. I'm a patriot. So if you're not a patriot, this is not your show. But if you love God and you love family and you love country, you're in the right place today as we talk about how the two of these connected, two of these guests, and then what happened after that. And then we're going to hear from Coach Joe Kennedy about what he described as the fight of his life, going all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. So let's start with you, Carol. I just want to hear what sparked you to contact Joe and offer to paint a picture of him praying on the football field, which, by the way, is what got him into lots of trouble. And so you're a pot stirrer too, Carol. I love it. We're all in the right place. But what compelled you to reach out to him and say, can I paint your painting and tell your story?
Yeah, well, I just thought it was such an important story. So I had been hearing about it before it even happened. I was reading about it, and I knew that it was just really going to be important for Christians if he won. I knew that. And when the decision came down and he won, I was already painting people praying, and there he was praying on the football field. And that was his famous picture. And so and the whole case was about prayer. So I thought, I'm just going to try to see what he says. I mean, I really did not expect him to answer, to be honest. I just thought, I'm just going to throw it out there and see what happens. And lo and behold, he wrote me back right away and said, sure. And I was so happy because I really wanted this story in my book, just because I think it's just so important. Yes. I really do. I've always thought it was, even before it happened, I thought it was important.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'd love to hear from you, Joe. So Carol reaches out and says, I'm painting pictures of people praying and I'm writing about it in a book. What made you say yes? You had no idea who she was.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. This is so broken up right now. I can't even hear you.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now? How's this?
That sounds better.
Okay. So I was just saying, what made you say yes to Carol when you didn't even know her?
Yeah, well, when she called, she was so kind, and she says, I'm not some kind of stalker or anything. I'm not some kind of weird person. I'm a believer. I love to paint, and God just called me to paint this picture for you. And I was so honored by that. I was humbled. I didn't know what to say to that. And I thought, well, yeah, if you do that, that'd be great. And she says, well, I'll let you know when I'm done with it, and I'll send you a copy of it. So when she finally did, you hear people that say, they'll do something. But man, I got this picture. Now it's in my bedroom. It's right on my wall. Every morning when I wake up, it's the first thing I look at.
Wow. How does that feel, Carol?
Awesome. I love it. I just love it when people love their paintings. That's, you got to love your paint.
That's right. So, Joe, let's just dive right in. She painted a painting of you kneeling on the football field. And tell us first of all, what made you kneel on that field every week?
Yeah, it kind of goes back a little ways. When I first got out of the Marine Corps, I was heathen. I was very much an atheist, and I had no faith in anything. Well, I met up with my childhood sweetheart, who was a good churchgoer, and things weren't working out between us. And I really wanted it to work out so desperately bad. And one day I went to church, and I was sitting there, and I just, the music and arts and everything really speaks to my soul. And they started playing these songs. And next thing I know, I'm walking up to the altar, and I just threw myself on there and said, Lord, I'll give you the glory. If you just give me my wife, I will give you my entire life. So he took me up on that and said, hey, I'm going to make you a football coach, which I don't know anything about football. And I thought that was kind of a good joke, but I was watching Facing the Giants, and that movie, it wasn't the best quality. They didn't have a high budget, but let me tell you, there's something about art that really reaches into people's souls.
Yes.
And it just dropped me to my knees, and I said, God, I'll give you the glory after every game, win or lose. So that's how that whole thing started, was just really through art and media that God just kind of called me, and I started doing my prayer after each football game.
Wow, that's so beautiful. Now that promise, so I watched your movie last night. Loved it. I loved it. So inspiring there. I have so many things I want to talk about today about your whole story, all the way back to your childhood. But one of the things I caught was that promise you made God. You didn't tell your wife about that promise at first, did you?
No, yeah. Most of my stuff that I talk between God is very personal, very private, and that was one of them. That it was 100% between me and God. And when I make a promise with God, I want it to be where it's just him and I, and that way I'm the only one that's held accountable. If somebody else is involved with it, then there's a third person that's part of it. And I wanted this to be a real sacred thing between us.
Wow. Thank you for telling me that, because I was watching the movie because our viewers might not know this, but your decision to continue to kneel on the field against all of the opposition was problematic for your marriage. It became a problem. And I'm watching the movie just tell her. Just tell her you made God a promise, but the fact that you just said it was this sacred thing between you and God, that's so beautiful. And I have such respect for that. I can understand why you held that within you until you absolutely had to tell her, So how long did you kneel on that football field without incident, so to speak, where everybody kind of left you alone doing your thing?
Yeah, we were in its 8th season. So for 8 years, I did this. The kids noticed it. They want to know if they could come out. And of course, it's a free country. They could. And, it's hit and miss. Kids are fickle. If they lose by 60 points, they don't want to be happy or be thankful about anything. Same thing if they end up winning by 60 points, then they lose their mind and they just want to celebrate. So there was times they were with us, sometimes they weren't with me, and it didn't matter because it was just thanking God after every football game. But we were in our 8th season before anybody even batted an eye about anything.
And was it many people, one person? What was the pushback?
Well, interestingly enough, I know you saw the movie. You saw the coach that was noticing the prayer afterwards, and he thought it was something really cool. So he called our principal and told him, I want to tell you what your football program is doing is pretty awesome, because we don't pray with our kids, but he thought it was awesome. So everything started from a compliment. It had nothing to do with anything bad or, nefarious. It was just a compliment of somebody noticing that this was great sportsmanship and a moment of peace after a good long battle.
That's incredible. I was listening to a podcast earlier talking about how God wants us to celebrate each other and celebrate the gift, but also how the enemy hates it when we celebrate good. And this is such an example of that. Somebody celebrated this beautiful thing, this sacred thing that was sacred to you and God. They didn't even realize they were celebrating that, but you did. And along comes the enemy to try to steal the whole thing. So you are informed that, basically you got to stop doing that. Is that really how it went down? All of a sudden, out of nowhere, you have to stop doing that?
Yeah. And I really did try to work with the school because these people are my friends. My wife has worked there for 15 years at the school district. I worked there for a dozen years. We go to church together. We spend holidays together. So nobody wanted this big fight over something so trivial as a 15-second prayer. And it wasn't until the school district lawyers got involved. And little did I know that the school district's lawyers are the ones that are behind a lot of the hate groups that just want religion out of the school, the separation of church and state, freedom from religious foundation. And I just thought it was really, really weaselly of them to, hey, we'll represent the school districts as long as they abide by what we want. So I was fighting something that myself and the school didn't want to fight. But for, like you said, for something that was the enemy tried to make evil, just turned it into something incredible.
Yes, sure did. Sure did. So the kind of part of the opening of your movie, it shows that you had a lot of fights in your childhood. You were a fighter from a young age. You had to be. And somewhere in those first few minutes, you say, I had no idea that the fight of my life would be, basically fighting for prayer in the public sector for our entire nation. You're a little boy just in survival mode. Yet, do you see and understand how much God used all of that to prepare you for this fight of your life?
Oh, well, absolutely. Now I do. The whole time growing up, I didn't see it at all. When Carol called me up and talk about, I swear she's a prophet. She said, I can understand where you came from. And I felt the pain that you went through. And she wanted to capture all of this. And it's when you realize, you take a step back and see it from somebody else's perspective. And she said, I really wanted to capture that moment of everything leading up to this. And she could explain it a lot better. But I look back even to when I was in the womb. I was unwanted pregnancy. So God has had his fingerprints on me the entire time. And
Yes.
It takes people to really show you that, because when you're living in the fight or you're living in day to day, you don't notice these things until somebody like Kim calls me up or Carol calls me up and says, do you actually know what God is doing in your life? And you don't realize it until somebody puts it into that perspective.
Yes. Well, and I want to take that opportunity, this moment, to tell you maybe no one's ever told it to you this way. You are dangerously anointed. And that means you're a threat to the darkness. And one of the ways you know you're dangerously anointed is because your whole life you've had more opposition and resistance than the average person. And it's such an irony to me that your movie is called Average Joe when you are anything but average. You are so extraordinary, Coach Kennedy. And you have been from such a young age. You know, even that fight that was in you was evidence of the extraordinary inside of you, where others would have just given up. And your unwillingness to let go of Denise. You guys just see the movie. It's a love story. It's all the things. But, you know, you held on to something with her, and even your desire to keep her safe and protect her. Like, you always had this extraordinary thing inside of you that only grew in you. And then, of course, I'm a big fan of our military. I have a son who's a veteran in the Army, and I'm sure the Marine Corps had a massive impact on shaping you and molding you and taking all that was in you and giving it an outlet. Is that how you'd describe it? Or how would you say the Marine Corps impacted your character development?
Oh yeah, it absolutely did. It took a punk kid, because I was always in trouble. In and out of group homes and foster homes. And, when cops pick you up every Friday night and take you somewhere else, you're on the wrong path. So it's really, I knew I needed something in my life to actually change. And then by the grace of God, the Marine Corps just kind of spoke out to me. And it was, I get to get paid to fight. It sounded like a great deal for me. But I learned the thing about team building and leadership and all the things that I was lacking growing up. And that's probably one of the reasons why I became a coach, was that I could take these skills that I did not learn when I was a kid, and the trouble I went through. I could help kids that have been down these roads, and they're not alone. So I was able to be blessed to be able to help them and be able to, to recognize what they're going through and be able to walk through it with them, with full understanding of, the trials and tribulations that people go through during their life.
So in the movie, I felt like when you got into the part where you were coaching and you brought in some of that Marine and some of that drill sergeant and all that, I thought that could be a whole movie on its own, what you've done for these kids. I mean, it's quite clear that your heart for them, your background, the struggles you faced, the family you did not have, and what you tried to provide for all these boys out on the football field. It's probably like another Facing the Giants kind of movie. It's one of those things where people are probably going to talk about that. Well, they will talk about it all the way into eternity, how you impacted those boys. And that's huge. But the whole thing that the movie's pointing to is your fight for religious freedom. And this is something that really blew my mind at the end of the movie when it said, we are now more free. We have more religious freedom now than we have in the last 50 years because of the Lemon Law being obsolete now, overturned, removed. Can you talk to the viewers about that? What does that really mean, that we have more religious freedom now than we ever have in the last 50 years?
Yeah, little do people know really what goes on behind the scenes. There was a bad case back in the in the 70s?
I thought 78, but I could be wrong. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, way back in the day. And so we're talking 50 years ago, there was this case, and it was very hostile to religious freedoms. And it was really one of the downfalls where people started talking about the separation of church and state. You can't combine the two, and that you can't have religion in the public square. And it was a huge hindrance because of this case. And the case was so badly written. I mean, I know it was called Lemon, but it was really, appropriately named, because it made absolutely no sense to common people. It said one of the tests was, what would the reasonable observer think? And, I don't know too many people that are reasonable to start with. So,
Right?
So I don't know what that meant, especially if you're trying to protect the law or trying to enforce the law to the reasonable observer. So we have been trained that religion is not supposed to be in the public square. It can't be in our high schools. It can't be in schools. If you want that, you go to a private school, and that's not the way that the Constitution was written. The First Amendment is very clear, but it was that case that just jaded everybody, and we have been programmed for the past 50 years that this is the way that it is.
Yeah.
So when Lemon has been overturned because of this case, we need to now reprogram our thoughts and the way that we think and the way that we act, that wherever you go, God could go with you. And that's just an awesome thing. The way it was originally intended, back to the things that America was founded upon. So that's where we're at right now.
Yes.
We're at the starting point, and we need to train and teach people of what that means and how to exercise their faith in public.
Yes, exactly. And the little known fact that the phrase separation of church and state was never a law. It's not in the Constitution. It was in a letter written by Thomas Jefferson. And if you take it in context, he was talking about the government not having a right to infringe upon our religious freedoms, not the other way around. Not that it's the government's job to be a watchdog and keep religion out. And it's just been so misused and twisted to strip away more and more of our freedoms. But what you did, Joe, and your willingness to continue and stay in the fight, and maybe had you not had the life you had, the tenacity you had, maybe you would have just given up. I don't know, but God chose the right guy for that job, because 3 years you were denied by the Supreme Court once. Am I correct? They denied you once, and then they said yes to taking your case and basically told you how to win it, like gave you the Supreme Court case for dummies, like a cheat sheet.
Yeah. But the whole thing took 7 years. We lost 7 times in a row getting back to the Supreme Court.
Wow.
So that was, and it really was, it was tough. But then, when I get to talk to people like you, Carol, she's been talking to me for, I don't know, a couple of years now. But these are the reasons why I continue to fight, is because I have all these people that are wanting to stand up with me. And that is amazing that there's so many people here in America that want their freedoms back, and they're expressing that more. They just needed somebody to stand up where they could rally around them. And I was more than happy to do that. And there was a million times I wanted to quit, but then you get a phone call from some sweet lady that says, I saw this picture in my mind, and I want to draw this, and I want to send you a copy of it. I can't tell you what that does to somebody's, to their psyche and to their well-being, and knowing they're on the right track, and just give them strength and hope. So, wow. Carol, love you to death. Thank you so much. You're huge to me. You're huge.
Oh, let me unmute you, Carol.
I thought it was so great when you said, when you won the Supreme Court, you said, it's like losing every football game and then winning the Super Bowl. I thought that was great.
Absolutely. So true.
I love that. That's the perfect metaphor. Wow.
Thank you for saying that, Joe. I'm so glad you love your painting.
Oh, I do. Love it so much. Every day, I can't tell you. I'll send you a picture actually of where it is. We wake up in the morning and it's the first thing we look at. And it tells us why we do what we do, and to continue on fighting the good fight.
Well, I commend you, Carol, for being so bold and just saying, I'm painting people praying, and this guy got in huge trouble praying. I'm going to paint him. So, Joe, what are you doing now are you continuing on the fight for religious freedom, or what does your fight look like today?
Well, that's an interesting thing. So we did write the book, Average Joe, and we did do the movie Average Joe. And, people don't go out and see movies like they used to. So we're trying to get the word of mouth. for people to get educated on the movie and the book, to get more of the background of it. And it is, like you said, it's like a great date night movie to spend with your family.
Yes.
And so we want to do is we want to encourage others that no matter what you're going through, I mean, the love of our country, the love of a relationship, and the love of our God. You put those three things together and nothing can stop us. And so I've been going around the country speaking on that and really trying to bring life into America. And we can see it turning. That's a great thing, is that we thought it was so dark here months ago. And now the light's on, and you saw it even back in at the Olympics. Every time somebody won something, they went and I would give the glory to God. So this has been coming up for quite a while. And now with the election the way that it is, this is going to open up the doors to heaven. And we really get to start shining and showing our faith here in America. And I want to be part of that.
Me too. And I know Carol does too. And I know that's why she wrote her book. Carol, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the heart behind these 18 paintings and 18 stories?
Yeah, and so the 18 paintings are all just a bunch of other average people, just regular people that, had a God moment in their life that they wanted to tell about. And so I painted 18 paintings and I have 18 stories in there. Your story is one of so you're just in there with a bunch of other average people. And, it was just a labor of love. God asked me to paint people praying, and then he told me to write a book. And he told me to give the paintings away, Joe. So everybody got their painting for free, not just you. Everybody gets their painting for free. And I already knew your testimony. So I just took it out of a couple of articles and I made it my own story. Did you get the book?
I have not gotten the book.
Okay, well, your story about just the Supreme Court case is in there, not your whole life story, and how you won. And so hopefully it'll be really successful too.
Yeah, what I foresee, as soon as I saw the painting that you did for me, now every time I see that picture of Trump where he was doing the fight with his ear bleeding, I see you painting that, and if there's anything I could do to get that to him, please. If you do that picture, let me know, and we'll make sure we get that to him personally.
Okay, well, I've already done one painting of Trump, but it wasn't that one. It was just a painting of him with a flag behind him and his hand on his chest. But I've done one painting of him, but I could certainly give that a shot.
Yeah, please do. That spoke volumes to Americans that we do need to continue to fight.
Yes, I agree. I believe that our nation has a purpose. God's not done with it yet. We have been a light to the world. We've done a lot of dark things. We're not without stain or sin, just like a human. I always tell people, nations are like people. They're redeemable from their past life. And that's what God wants to do with our nation, redeem us from our sins and use us for good in the world. We have so much light and life to offer. But we won't if we lose our freedoms. The basis of our light is freedom. And it's part of the gospel that even God himself said, I'm going to give mankind total freedom to choose, even though I know most of them will reject me. God is a God of freedom. And I think in that way, Joe, your fight all the way to the Supreme Court to just take a knee and honor God for 15 seconds after you did something he called you to do every week is such a reflection of his nature, that you stood for freedom, and that's standing for the kingdom, that's standing for God's heart. He's a God who's pro-freedom. That's what I need people to understand. he's so for our freedom, and the world and the systems of the world want to strip that from us. But people like you who inadvertently end up in a fight and choose not to back down are really, truly extraordinary people and worthy to be celebrated. So I just want to celebrate you and celebrate what you've done and what you continue to do to share the message and travel and speak. Can people contact you to be a speaker at their event or come to their schools?
Yeah,
or
absolutely. And it's so simple. Carol, I think she just found me on Facebook.
Okay.
Because I'm just, I'm the normal guy. But if you go to CoachJoeKennedy.com,
Okay.
that'll get you to where you need to go. And I know it's not very original, but I mean,
Perfect. It's your brand.
it's simple. It's a very simple thing. Yeah. CoachJoeKennedy.com. And you could get a hold of me right through there. And I would love to be able to talk, pray, chat with anybody and everybody, because we're all in this together and God has called me to serve. So I want to serve everybody around me.
I love that. That's amazing. Well, again, I just have to say to the audience, please watch the movie, because we didn't even get to go deep into your backstory and like you said, being in and out of foster homes and group homes and just a really painful childhood. There are scenes in the movie that I was just in tears, just in absolute tears, like imagining how you must have felt as a young boy, and just, oh, it broke my heart. It really did. And, but I do know that some of the deepest broken places become the most useful to God. And certainly you are a vessel that he can refill and pour from, Joe. And I just really, I celebrate that in you.
Thank you so much. I know my wife is looking forward to talking to you too.
So I'd love to.
We need to do another one of these soon.
Yes, I'd love to have her on the show. Typically, we feature women's stories, and it's not that I would never have a man on, but I would love to have your wife as well. She has her own story within the story, right?
And it's beautiful. I think hers is better than mine.
Well, that's obvious from the movie. You're kind of in love. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you both for being on the show today. Carol, tell us one more time where to get your book. I have a link up.
Yep, you can get my book at Amazon or at westbowpress.com. Just go to westbowpress.com and click on the bookstore and put in the title, Illustrated God Stories, and Joe's story is in there, and my story is in there, and we're working on volume 2 right now. Kim's story is going to be in the volume 2, so
yeah,
we're all three going to be in one of my books pretty soon, and it's a beautiful book. It's a full color book. And it's got 18 paintings in it and 18 stories. And every single page is in color, and it's also in large print. So you can gift it to anybody that might be having problems reading regular print. It's an awesome gift.
It really is. And we can't wrap the show without showing the painting.
Yes.
There it is. Let me see if I can get it without the glare. There we go.
Wow. That's amazing.
So amazing. Just so beautiful. And Joe, God bless you, and Denise, in all that you're doing. I just pray that he continues to strengthen you. And I believe with all my heart, you're dangerously anointed. You took on one of the greatest forces against our nation just with your obedience. And I think that's a really important part of your story, that you just were simply obeying God. And every time you were pressed, you had to say, am I going to follow through with my commitment to God or not? You weren't looking for a fight. You weren't looking for publicity. You weren't looking for significance. You were looking to stay faithful to your promise to God, because he was faithful to you. I think that's the most beautiful part of your story. So thank you you really touched my heart. I'm getting a little emotional, so I'm going to wrap it up. You've really touched my heart with your life, and I'm going to continue to share your story and refer you as a speaker and point people to you. And please have your wife email me, because I want to talk to her too.
Bless all of you. You guys are so awesome.
Thank you,
too.
Joe, for everything. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, listeners and viewers, for being with us today on this special episode of Extraordinary with Kimberly Joy. You'll be able to watch the replay on social media. We're going to upload this to YouTube. It'll be everywhere where the podcast is. Reach out if you have anything you'd like to share with Joe. We'll forward that to him, or in his own words, he said you can reach him on Facebook. If you want to talk to Carol or maybe be a subject of her next book, if you'd like a painting of you praying and you'd like your story in her next book, you can find her as well on social media or reach to me on all my channels and I will connect you with Carol. I'm at Official Kimberly Joy or at The Few Women on socials or thefewwomen.com on the internet. You guys, it's been such a gift. I love and appreciate both of you so much. I look forward to more conversations with both of you. God bless you today.
Bless you. Love you guys.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.